Welcome back to another Two and a Blue interview. We are filming from the Energy Defender studio. For any of your solar and roofing needs, call Energy Defenders. We are here with C&D Coffee Roaster owner, Corrado Sciaretta. Man, should I say like LLC or something after that?
Yeah, there's an LLC after the
C&D Coffee Roaster LLC. There we go. That sounds much better. All right, man. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great getting to know you a little bit over the past couple weeks. You are cousins with Johnny Ravioli.
Yes.
A friend of the show, a recent guest. So yeah, man, you got a little coffee shop right in Hamilton. Very, very good coffee.
Thank you.
Excellent. I mean, no bitterness, no bite. How'd you get started?
The story goes back to the end of 2012. Back in 2000, actually, I married a Colombian woman. And in 2012, I happened to be in Colombia with my wife, visiting her family. And it turns out that one of her brothers had a coffee plantation. So we were out at the farm and we were talking, and I was just getting ready to retire from my regular career in the laundry industry, commercial laundry. And I asked my brother-in-law, I says, how do I bring enough of this coffee home with me to enjoy it for the rest of the year or until I come back to Colombia? And he said, brother-in-law, he says, that's no problem. He says, you start a company in the United States, we'll roast it, package it, and ship it to you. You sell it and you drink whatever you want.
How good was the coffee? It was noticeably better than anything you've...
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I found, Steve, is that the commercial coffees today, and over the years ago it was good. Then they started to cheap it out to a degree where they use lesser quality coffees, blended more coffees, got away from the single origin, and more blends to create something that wasn't natural. Someone had to do this in a lab or figure out how to mix this with this to create something. When you're drinking 100% coffee from any country, the qualities of the coffee stand out because it comes from the elements in the soil, water, and air. So when you're drinking coffee that just came right off the farm, it's a natural product. It's 100%. It's a single origin. There's nothing blended. There's nothing adulterated with it. It's just like here in our hometown of Hamilton. Walk out into a blueberry field during the harvest time. They taste a lot better coming right off the bush than they do in the stores because they've been handled and they've been maneuvered and manipulated and shipped and treated and whatnot. So drinking the coffee there was a much, much better product. Now I'll ask you a question. The coffee that you had in my shop, you say that it's a excellent quality, very good coffee, no bitterness, no bite to it. That's the outcome that we're looking for in a single origin product. So their coffee in Colombia is even better than what I could produce because it's pure and it's fresh. It's the freshest you're going to get. We bring coffee beans in. They take time getting through the process, getting through shipping, through customs, so forth and so on. Green beans could last a long time in storage and don't lose a lot of quality, but I think that they lose enough that it takes some of that quality away. So yeah, it's a much better product when you're drinking it from the source.
When you say green bean, you're talking about the coffee bean itself is green prior to the roasting process.
Yeah, the bean itself starts out as what they call a cherry. It actually looks like a cherry hanging on the plant, on the tree. It's green to start with, and it has pulp on it, just like a cherry. And as it ripens, it goes from green to a yellow, orange, and then to a red. And that becomes a ripe coffee bean. When they harvest, they take that cherry, they run it through, there's different processes. Some are processed in fermentation, where they take the coffee cherry and they ferment the cherry itself, and the mucilage breaks down, and they pull that from the cherry, it gets washed away, and then they're left with the bean wrapped in 1, 2, 3 more layers. Let's liken this to, once you get the mucilage off, let's liken it to a peanut. You have a raw peanut, it's in a shell. A raw coffee bean is in a shell. It's not quite as thick as a peanut shell. But once you take that off, then on a peanut, you have that brown skin. Mm-hmm. On a coffee bean, you also have a skin. It's more of a cream color, but it's another skin on there. Then during the roasting process, that bean also sheds the very last skin that holds its defense against disease and insects. It comes off as what we call chaff. It's very, very thin. It's extremely light in weight. There's no weight to it. Makes a great compost for the garden, though. And at that point, during the roasting process, then the bean is completely shed of all of its skins, and it starts roasting. It starts to turn color. It grows in size, and it loses weight. It's a very simple process. But going back to your original question, in the country of origin, and if you talk to anybody that's traveled anywhere in the world that they produce coffee, your Central American, South American, African, Vietnamese, Thailand, all the countries that produce coffee, if you have coffee in those countries, you're going to find a huge difference in the flavors, in the smoothness, even in their roasting process. I remember going to the Bahamas, I think it was, and we went to a coffee farm, and there was a guy out there with a clay bowl, and he was roasting coffee beans on a fire, just in the clay bowl, kind of flipping them around and selling them in small bags. So we bought a bag and we took it home and had this coffee. It was phenomenal. It's a fresh product, and it's not manipulated in any way. That's what I do with my coffee. I don't change it. I do everything single origin. I don't try to create something that isn't there. When I source my beans, right now I'm roasting 5, 6 different countries, and some in several different roasts. So I do about 10 different roasts altogether. The different roasts will generate a different profile in the coffee bean. Let's say a medium roast versus a dark roast. The darker you roast, the more earthy the flavors that come out in the bean. The lighter the roast, you're going to pick up more of the subtle flavors, your citrus, your floral, honey, caramel, these kind of flavors. Whereas your dark is going to be more chocolate, more robust fruit. And that happens through the process. And it's up to the roaster to determine what they're looking for as an end result. I could tell you that I've probably gone through, like even roasting the Colombian. I roasted Colombian beans in Colombia. No, it's a no-brainer, all right? But the beans that I use and the beans that I'm roasting, I found that by doing a different roast, and I have a few little secrets that I kick into the process, and I'm getting a roast out that no one else seems to be able to get. So I don't know whether I found the perfect roast profile. I doubt that, but it works for me,
So Do coffee beans need to grow in tropic areas?
Yes.
Do we have any American coffee?
The only coffee that's
Farms?
grown not in the continental United States.
Huh.
You need warm weather year round, cool nights. The best place to grow good quality coffee is on a mountain.
Like Hawaii can't produce some coffee?
Hawaii does.
Oh, okay. Oh, not the
Hawaii,
continental.
the continental
Okay.
United States. Hawaii is the only state in the United States that produces coffee. Now, Puerto Rico is not a state, but they're a, what do they call it?
Hello. Puerto Rico is
It's a sovereign nation or something to that effect.
what's that called? Puerto Rico. It's like a
Anyway,
thing.
they grow coffee there, but they have the environment. They have the warm weather year round. They have mountainous regions that they can grow, and they have jungles. The best coffee actually comes out of a jungle, high in the mountains. And there's a couple of factors involved. First of all, the cooler temperatures from your mountainous region causes the coffee to ripen much slower over time, which causes the bean to naturally build its sugars and its different elements that are going to give it the flavors that it has. A lot of the flavors come from where it's grown. My brother-in-law's farm was in a volcanic region. A lot of people that drank my coffee back in the day from, that particular coffee, they said, a lot of people said that it tasted like the Kona coffee because of the volcanic region. It just adds a certain flavor to the coffee, to the elements. And one of the neat things that I found about coffee is that coffee in itself absorbs more elements out of the soil, air, and water than any other vegetation. It sucks up the elements like a sponge. So depending on where it's grown, I have coffee from Ethiopia. It has a lot of floral. It has different grasses, lemongrass, and different tastes that you don't find in other coffees. Evidently, the elements in their soil create those flavors. And that's where the roasting profile comes into play. Know what it is that you're looking for as an end result. Create that from the elements to create the flavors. Once you've done that, then you could play around with that single origin bean, give it a different roast profile. Some coffees, you want to start the roast out slow, lower temperature, raise the temperature at a certain rate, get a certain point in the roast, that hot roast, and then drop the temperature quick and finish it off a little cooler. There's so many different things.
How much trial and error does that take for a roaster? I mean, like, did you have a guide? Like, did you Google it?
I did a lot of research on coffee roasting. I spent 4 months in Colombia, 3.5 months on the farm, and I spent time at roasters there. We had a roaster on the farm, and I did our roasting on the farm. So I had not only my brother-in-law, but I had other people that were knowledgeable that kind of guided me through the process. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was looking for as an end result. But then every coffee that I do roast now, I'll give you an example. I just sourced a Robusta bean from India. The Robusto is the bean that you blend. Actually, it's the only thing that I do blend, that you blend with an Arabica bean. And these are two main varieties, Arabica and Robusta. The Robusta is higher in caffeine content. It's more bitter, and it has a bite to it. But people that like a good quality espresso like the Robusta in there. They like to be able to drink it with that bite, with that little bit of bitterness, with that squeezed lemon rind over the top. That's important to them. So with the Robusto, when I Googled that to find out what kind of a roast I wanted to do, because I do that one separate from the Arabica and then put them together, I found that there's a certain profile to roast the Robusto. To start it out at a certain temperature, bring the temperature up very slowly, get to a certain point in the roast, hit it real hot for a minute or two, and then bring the temperature back down. And that locks in the flavors of the Robusto. And actually, on the second roast, I was able to accomplish that.
Like cooking a steak.
Exactly, exactly. And as I said to you, I guess it was yesterday when we were talking about roasting and then grinding and then making a pot of coffee, that's really a no-no, because the beans have to degas.
Mm-hmm.
They build carbon dioxide. They give off a lot of carbon dioxide. And unless you let them degas and you grind them at that point in time where they're fresh, you get a bitterness in the coffee. Because I guess, and this is just a guess, I guess the gases only dissipate from the bean, not from the grind. Because I could take a bag of freshly roasted beans, put them in a bag, one-way valve, grind the same batch of beans, put them in the same type of bag, and the bag that are beans will expand a lot quicker than the grind. So it gives off the carbon dioxide differently. So I always let my beans rest after roasting 24 to 48 hours. I have two methods. First, I use a real thin mesh on the top of the container that I put them in, or I have a valve that I purchased, and I insert that. I put those in the lid of the container, which will open like a one-way valve, and it'll let the carbon dioxide out. That's a secondary way to degas them.
It's like wine.
Yeah. When you
a lot of similarities with the cooking.
Yeah. And it's, with the coffee, it's no different than cooking a good steak or making a pot of spaghetti sauce, or, everybody has a way of doing it that works for them. And also in coffee roasting. I've had people that roasted the same beans that I roast. They don't taste like the ones that I roast. So they have a different way to roast them, a different profile. I guess I'm really lucky because I stayed away from the gas-fired roaster. My roaster is electric. It's what they call a fluid bed roaster, which is really no different than an oversized popcorn popper on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
It generates the heat inside, and there's a fan inside the roaster. It blows the hot air up through a cylinder where I start with the green beans, and those beans will float. Those beans will float in the container, and as they're floating around, you could tell that they're losing weight because they start rising higher in the column. They go through several cracks where in expansion and release of moisture in the bean, you'll hear them cracking like popcorn. So it's in the roast end, it's a combination of sound, temperature, sight, and smell to reach your finished product. A lot of the roasters are automatic. They're on computer programs to be able to roast without really watching the roast. You can run it that way. Mine's 100% manual, so I kind of have to babysit my roaster. And I like doing it because I learn more about the roasting process for every roast that I do. And I've done thousands of roasts over the years.
Do they do anything with the cherry, like the pulp?
Yes.
Is it edible?
I don't know if it's edible, but I know that they use it as compost.
Oh.
Now, on the farm, and several of the farms that I visited in Colombia, they have composting houses where when they depulp the cherry, they take that mucilage, they put it in concrete troughs that run on an angle down to a hole at the end, and there's a hose that runs off of that, and that hose runs into a 55-gallon drum. When they put the mucilage in, they also throw in, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of these little red worms.
Huh.
Those little red worms are going to turn all that mucilage into compost. They're also going to create liquid fertilizer, liquid urea, because as they defecate and urinate in those troughs, all that fluid that comes out of their bodies flows downhill. It goes into the hose and into the 55-gallon drum. So they take that and they use that as liquid fertilizer.
Well, speaking of defecating, there's a coffee, a very expensive coffee bean that comes from the defecation of a mountain lion, right?
It's what they call a tree cat.
What how's that work?
Well, I've never had it. I've never seen it, but I've done some reading on it. It's actually called, if I think I have the pronunciation proper, Kopi Luwak. And
the cat eats the bean, right? It eats the cherry.
The cats, these tree cats eat the cherry. They can't digest the pit or the coffee bean. So that comes out in whole. The bean comes out whole. All the skins are off of it. The mucilage is off. The skins are off. So now they come out with a green bean that's stuffed in their scat.
It's pre-roasted.
Well, it's pre something. I don't know if you want to call it roasted. And they claim that that's one of the most expensive coffees in the world.
It's probably dangerous to get it. I mean, I don't want a tree cat.
Well, you don't have to take it from the tree cat. They leave it laying on the ground. You just have to go scoop it up.
They got their territories, don't they?
Yeah, I guess.
You gotta go into the tree cat territory, go grab its. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, but now they have other ways to take the mucilage off, and some of it is in fermentation. They'll put them in vats, they ferment it, and they ferment that mucilage off of the bean.
They can't just get like a pit grabber, like they have for cherries.
Well, what they do have to remove the mucilage is that they go through a set of rollers, like a conveyor roller, but each roller has.
I mean, how tough is this stuff that they're going through these huge processes to get? I mean, can't you just rip it out of there?
I guess that they can send them through, and I mean they're a lot smaller than a cherry, so I think it's just easier to to run them through these different processes. But now some of the processes that they're doing now, like the fermentation and the anaerobic stuff and all these different ways that they're treating the beans, it's actually creating a much better tasting coffee. I guess everything that we do in life, there's something better down the road.
Yeah, well, we talked to like Billy Galetta, who, his family owned the largest blueberry farm in the world. And he was talking to us about the crossbreeding of the different species. And like they have like thousands. I mean, every type of blueberry you see, I mean, they just run through like thousands of crossbred blueberry combinations.
Right.
And I mean, I would imagine that they do that with coffee too. No?
They do the same thing because they have different varieties that they've crossbred different sub varieties of beans. And like I said, you start with the two. There's actually three main, and I can't remember the third one. But you have your Arabica, you have your Robusta, and then there's a third one. Those are the main varieties. And then off of the Arabica, you have several different sub-varieties. Now, a lot of those sub-varieties were actually crosses between different varieties. You could have had your Typica and Catura. They could have been crossbred, and they can give you, I don't know, whatever name they give it. But it's no different with blueberries or peaches or any other fruit.
He was saying that, they try and get like the best of the best with the best of the best, and it ends up being a dud. Like no shelf life, not enough flavor, not enough this, and then they'll take a dud, and it ends up like this awesome product.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like the coffee beans have like different kind of reactions to, their respective crossbred, species of coffee,
That I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. I mean, I spent a lot of years working on blueberry farms, way back in my, as Joe Pesci says it, in your ute.
Yeah.
In my ute, I spent a lot of time working on blueberry farms full time. And, you go through the process with your different varieties, your different growing methods, your different seasons for different blueberries. And it's like when the farmers developed the Duke blueberry, they were looking for something that was along the same lines as the blue crop, but with a little bit better shelf life.
Mm-hmm. That was the Galettas too. They developed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Galettas was the forerunner in most of what happened in the blueberry industry, here in New Jersey. And I was at that industry way back, and I watched them go through, some of their work to get to where we are today with blueberries.
So how does like Dunkin' Donuts has a very distinct flavor. I don't like it at all. It's like my least favorite coffee. I drink coffee black, so I don't mask it with anything. Like so when I taste a good cup of coffee, it's like, oh wow, like this is good. Like usually I'm just suffering through it just to get a shot of caffeine, but when I drink a good cup, it's like, ooh, nice.
Well, I ask people this question.
Mm-hmm.
If you drink a cup of Dunkin' Donuts, and trust me, I drank Dunkin' Donuts for many years. I drank Wawa for many years.
I like Wawa.
And they're all good coffees in their own right. But my question about Dunkin' Donuts is, how do you get a coffee that tastes the same every day, every week, every month, every year for the last 30, 40 years that they've been in business?
It's got to be genetically modified, right? I mean,
well, either it's genetically modified from the source, or it's flavored in such a way to give it a certain flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what they do, but that would be my guess.
Speaking of Wawa, I was there and they were brewing, they were doing their brew, and they put a shot of salt in with the
it's
beans.
An old diner trick.
Yeah, that's what they said. It was an old diner trick. Is that real? Is that a thing? What's that do?
The salt cuts the acidity and the bitterness. My way to eliminate the bitterness is to roast good quality beans.
Mm-hmm.
I pay more for my beans. I get a better quality. They don't pay quite as much. They add salt to get rid of the bitterness. So the bitterness is in their coffee, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
They just pinch of salt. It cuts the bitterness. It
just tastes burnt. Like their coffee just tastes burnt all the time. It just tastes like burnt coffee. I mean, it's fine. Yeah. It's nice on a cold day, 5 o'clock in the morning, you're freezing, you drink a cup of coffee, it's fine. So you started getting into like the business of it a little bit. Where would you say most of your business comes from? Is it from people walking in the door getting a cup of coffee, or are you selling beans to people?
My business is primarily packaged coffee.
Okay.
In all seriousness, as far as the amount of cups of coffee that I sell, I'm never going to make a living off of that. But I make a living off of selling the packaged coffee. I offer brewed coffee as a convenience to my customers. I offer the brewed coffee as a convenience to have someone sample the coffee before they purchase a bag of coffee. But my primary product is fresh roasted coffee. Now, go ahead and ask me the question. How did I derive it doing that?
How did you derive it doing that?
It was really pretty simple because when I was in Connecticut, my son and I, when we started our business, we only had Colombian coffee. So we didn't have a store. We didn't have a single location. We had a tent, we had a couple of tables, and we had a brewer. And we had our roasted coffee. We went out and we did farmers markets. So by doing that, we were able to bring the product to the customer. And it was funny during all those years. I know when you were in the store, I don't know if you noticed that we have our Colombian coffee in gold bags. That always drew people to our table. They thought it was some fantastic product. They'd walk over and the exact words out of their mouth was, "Oh, it's just coffee." And I would always call them back and say, "No, you're wrong. It's not just coffee. It's the best coffee you're going to taste in a long, long time." So they would sample, they'd buy a cup of coffee, and then we would get what I call the wow factor. They take a sip, take another sip, and then go, "Wow."
Well, you're waiting for it to like hit, because you're so used to just drinking a cup of coffee and you're like,
Yeah.
like whatever.
Yeah.
Just wake me up.
That's what makes us different, is that we don't have just coffee.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that's special. It's not, we don't do anything special to it. We just source good quality beans. I source depending on where the beans are grown, the region in a country, the elevation that they're grown in, the elements that are available that they're going to absorb from the soil, air, and water. All of these different things I take into consideration. I'll order samples, and the guy that I work with the company that I source from, he's always willing to send me samples, whether it's he roasts it or he sends me some green, and I'll go through the process and I either like it or I don't like it. We did a cupping session just before Christmas. He came from his company. He brought 4 different coffees with him, wanted to cup them with me, and so we went through. We found, he brought a Nicaraguan coffee with him that literally knocked my socks off. It's a little pricey, but I ordered a carton of it so I can bring it in and start roasting. Probably have some of that ready by next week, and I think that's going to be a top seller.
Good to know.
It has flavor like your taste buds won't know what to do.
I'll see you next week.
So, and this is how I source my coffees. And I have to tell you that over the years, I've had coffee from different roasters, from different sources, Ethiopian, Costa Rican, all Kenyan, all the different coffees. I go somewhere and I like to sample their coffees to see, how my roast fares with theirs. I never found any of these Central American coffees or African coffees that I liked. They were just always too bitter. They were bitey. The flavors were muddled. That could be from blending, where you take 2 good flavors, you put them together, and that's like going back to the blueberries.
Yep.
You start with 2 that are good, and you turn out something that's not so good. But as I sourced some of these single origin coffees from these countries, I fell in love with some of them, and that's what I'm producing.
Now, do you sell beans to to stores, or just to customers come in, they grab a bag, they go?
I've had it in stores. The problem with putting our coffee in a store is how the store is going to handle the product. I had it in a store in Connecticut. When we did taste tests, we did samples. The first weekend that we did that, we sold a multitude of bags of coffee. Then we put the coffee in the store. We asked the store managers, "Can you give us a spot? We'll put a display. We don't want to put it with your regular commercial coffees. You do that. A bag of Folgers is back then $2.99. We're getting $16 for our coffee. Which one are you going to buy?
I mean, me, I think if it's cheaper, it sucks.
Well,
Yeah.
but if people
That's just my.
if people are on a budget, they're always going to go for the cheaper.
Yeah, but if you're going into a coffee shop, I mean, do you really want to buy Folgers or do you want to buy like a coffee?
Well, and that's the difference. That's why I really don't have my coffee in stores.
Mm-hmm.
If I were going to put it in a store, I would put it in a specialty store. I have customers in Connecticut. I still have a base up there where they sell. I have one woman that has an organic farm, and I have a couple of my coffees are 100% organic, and she's been selling our Colombian coffee for many, many years. So she carries our coffee, but that's all she sells is our coffee. There's nothing else on the shelf. So that's a different type of a store or market. To put it in a grocery store, no. It just doesn't work. And
it changes hands too many times.
Well, not only that, but like in my shop, if somebody comes in and manhandles a bag and they rough it up a little bit because they want to squeeze it and smell it, and they want to get that aroma out of the bag, I'll take the bag and I'll fluff it back up. If it's really bad, I'll change the bag. I'll toss that bag, put it in another bag so that it looks good. If it doesn't look good, most people are going to say, it's not going to taste good either. It's presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So in a grocery store manager's not going to do that. He's not going to, go fluff the bags up.
Right.
It's like, don't squeeze the Charmin.
So your shop, I mean, you walk in and you're basically, it's grab and go, right?
Yeah.
You're getting a cup, you're getting a bag, and you're going. Have you considered opening space up for, people with laptops, like whatever, like a loungy type?
I did, and I've shot it down in my head several times. I'm not basically a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm. You're a roaster.
I'm a roaster.
Coffee Roaster LLC.
Now,
same day.
What I plan on doing, and I've been saying this for the last few months, I plan on doing cupping sessions where you can come in, wife, girlfriend, somebody can come in with a couple of other people, say 4 or 5 people, they make an appointment to come in. There's a basic charge, $20, $25 a head. You come in. I'm going to provide 2, 3, or 4 different coffees. We're going to sit and we're going to actually go through a cupping session where you're going to experience how cuppers and how the professionals actually taste the coffees and how they determine the qualities of the coffees. We're going to discuss the coffees. We're going to ask all the different questions. A lot of the myths in coffees. Does this have more caffeine? Does that have more caffeine? Is it true that there's mold in the coffee? Is it true that there's a lot of different myths. There's a lot of different things that I can debunk and put people at rest as far as the coffee world. So that's one of the things that I want to do instead of people just coming in and sitting and with their laptop and I don't do all the drinks. I do hot coffee, self-serve, and I do a cold brew.
Just started. It's good.
Yeah.
And
with the cold brew, I do an honest cold brew that's done properly. It has flavor. It's got smoothness. I do want to play around with that. I want to make the cold brew with some of the different coffees that I'm producing. I've always only done the Colombian. It seems that it's always produced the best robust cup of cold brew. So I want to try some different things. I want to try some different tops for the cold brew, doing the cold foam, I have an idea that I won't disclose now, but once I get it rocking and rolling, I think it's going to be a real winner. And it's a cold brew. It's a cold brew drink that I have to work on and get that squared away. but I think it's
I'll
going to be.
taste test it for you.
I'll
And let me know.
I'll invite you for the
tell you
first
how it
taste
is. Yeah.
test.
Sounds good. We'll cup that thing.
But and in my world, it's all about the taste of the coffee. What we do with it after it's roasted and after it's ready, anybody can do it. You buy the coffee, you take it home. People ask me, what's the best brewing method? Believe it or not, I have a little 5-cup, what looks like a Mr. Coffee, but is made by Farberware. That's what I brew my coffee with at home. Now, if people want something a little bit better, I tell them that they could go to either a pour over or a French press.
What's the bubbly one? It bubbles at the top on a stove. Like you put it on a stove top, and
it's a percolator.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle do that, and it's my favorite cup of coffee usually. I like going.
Yeah, that's a method. In a percolator, you're using a little bit coarser grind. If not, every time the water would bubble to the top and flush through, you would get more sediment in your coffee. So you use a little bit coarser grind, but the extraction of the coffee is slower than doing a fine grind in a drip. So you have the coarser coffee. Every time the water flushes through, it's only taking a small amount of flavor with it. So it needs to perk for a few minutes to give you that robust flavor. But yeah, percolator, it was good 100 years ago. It's still good today.
They're great. Do they do it different in Colombia, like the brew itself? Or they just put it in Mr. Coffee and here you go?
No, in Colombia, what they do there is that they take the coffee, and I don't know if you've ever had Puerto Rican coffee. They take the coffee grinds, they put it in a pot of boiling water, they boil it for a minute or two.
The grinds just not in a bag?
Not in a bag. It's just they just throw it into the water, they bring it back to a boil, and it boils for a minute. It's real slow. You lower your temperature, the same way in Colombia, and you let it sit for a minute or two. It's kind of like I don't know what the right word would be for it, but it's like kind of doing a French press without the apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing this coffee together between grind and water, and then you're going to take it, you're going to let it sit and steep for a minute, then you're going to filter it. They're going to filter it through some type of a filter or a felt sock, they're the funnel type. That I know that they call it a sock, but it's not really.
Yeah, I'm thinking of tube socks in my head.
Yeah, well, it looks like a tube sock, but it didn't come off of our feet.
Yeah.
And it has the felt inside. It's a real fine filter. Then they take that, and if you want it with dairy, then they take it, they put it back in the pot. They bring it back to heat. They throw the dairy in, and they bring it to a boil.
Man, America moves too fast.
Way too fast.
We need it like now. Give me a K-cup. See ya.
I mean, that's why, some people, they say, well, I'll make French press at home because I have the time to make it. Because with a French press, you want to let that steep. You want to put everything together in your apparatus and let it sit for 4, 5, 6 minutes so that it steeps properly.
What is a French? What is? Can you explain a French press?
It's 2 compartments. One compartment is where you have your coffee and your water. It steeps together, and then at a certain point in time, then you actually press. You have a plunger on the top, and that plunger pushes the liquid through a filter into your cup.
Oh.
So it steeps by itself in hot water, and then you press it through the filter. It's kind of like a make-believe espresso.
Cool.
I
mean, it sounds like you could do like a tea bag, coffee, like a coffee bag.
You can.
How come no one does that? That's amazing. No one does that.
I think that they're out there, but I don't think that a lot of people use it. It's a lot easier for people to use the K-cups. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, but you could just boil water, throw it in a cup, wait a few minutes, and see you later. I mean, it sounds like a better process for like a better cup of coffee.
I don't know if it's really better or not, because I know if I'm going to make a cup of tea and I'm using a tea bag as opposed to loose tea, I take that tea bag and I push it down with a spoon. I stir it. I push it down again. I squeeze it. I push it down to the bottom again. And I go through that process for the next 4 or 5 minutes to extract as much flavor out of the tea bag.
You could just let it sit.
Yeah, but you don't get that full extraction out of it. You may have to let it sit for 10 minutes instead of 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Again, we're in a hurry, but, you know. So I think that using a drip machine, using a French press, making Puerto Rican coffee, these are some of the ways that you can really, you know, get the best out of your coffee. Espresso, of course, you're going to get full flavor from your coffee, and then you're going to make 10 different drinks out of it, you know, using the espresso as a base.
I'm amazed at how much time and energy you spend thinking about and doing coffee stuff. What else do you do?
Well, let me just say this. I'm an odd character. Anything that I've ever done in my life, I don't let it go unless I know all that I need to know about it. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I worked on a farm, blueberry farm, wintertime was slow. So I started a firewood business. From that, I would have people ask me that had wood stoves, gee, I have a problem. My stove's not venting properly. What do I do? So I would go look at their installation, and I'll get back to you. So I would research and I'd, you know, figure out why they had a problem. And what I found is that I had the ability to actually go in as a consultant to fix their problems. So that was kind of like, and that was years later after I started with my weirdness. My first career, I was a barber. I became a barber in 1968. And in 1968, even the barber had hair down to his shoulder. So,
what a good time to be a barber.
It was.
You didn't have to do anything, I feel like.
Well, you didn't make any money either if you didn't do something spectacular.
Yeah.
So what I did, we only had one place in all of South Jersey that did any kind of hairstyling, and I believe that was, if I'm correct, I believe it was the Cherry Hill, the barber shop or the styling shop at the Cherry Hill Mall. They were the only ones doing any kind of styling. So I ordered magazines, hairstyling magazines out of California, because California, California was the front runner of hairstyling.
1968?
1968, yeah. I mean, it was all long hair.
Must have been way different, the style in California than New Jersey at that time, though.
It was. It was. I mean, you know, you had, this is where all the stars with long hair, they had to go to a stylist, because if they're going to wear their hair long, it had to look good. You know, they're on a movie set, or they're a singer or a musician. So they developed all these different styles out there. Well, I ordered a couple of different magazines. I subscribed to them, and I went through, and that's what I based my business on, were the styles that they developed out in California. So it was being educated in a part of the business that I learned nothing about in barber school. You know, they just taught you how to cut hair and how to shave, and, you know, what muscles you had to watch for in the face when you're shaving, or, you know. So I just went the extra step. I do the same thing with the coffee. It's all about, and it's funny, when I came home from that 4-month trip in Colombia, I came home and I said, I'm not done. I learned about decaffeination. I learned from roasters. I visited other farms, processors. So I saw the process, but I had a lot of unanswered questions. I spent, in the first year, easily 1,000 hours on a computer. and I researched all the questions that I had. Sometimes I got 10 different answers. So I would go back and research more. So I spent the time to research, because what we're doing right now, this isn't just stuff that just came to my head, and said, okay, we're going to tell a story. Now, most of this is all factual. It's all part of the business, part of, I feel that I've been very successful doing what I'm doing based on the knowledge that I have. I've converted a lot of people from drinking this to that, or this to ours, not because I strong-armed them, but because it was explained properly. It was explained why we're better than the next roaster. We do something that most roasters don't do. We buy specialty beans that are limited to the number of defects per pound or per 1,000 beans. We go through them before I roast, and we pull out any defects that we can visually find.
Wow.
And we're talking about, in a pile of beans this big, you've got 500-600 beans in there. So my wife diligently sits, spreads them, looks at them, flips them, rolls them, takes the bad ones out, and those go down to be processed and roasted. So, and every bad bean that's in there could cause, even if it costs a micromilligram of foul taste or bitterness, I don't want that taste in my coffee.
You are thorough.
No, I'm weird.
Well, okay, fair enough. It's like, it's amazing you never got caught up in like conspiracy theories. Like, I feel like you'd still be looking for who killed JFK if you ever started looking. Like you just seem like someone who just like latch onto a conspiracy theory, and then like how were you when the drones were going over New Jersey? Were you like, did you have like an aluminum hat?
Well, I had my own theories, but
what were they?
One was that as everyone blames China for COVID, I felt that there's a possibility with these drones that nobody seemed to know where they came from. Everybody says, well, where'd they come from? Nobody knew. Well, they're flying off to a ship offshore. Well, if there's a ship offshore, how come nobody knew about it? How come our government didn't know about it? How come, the Navy didn't know about it? So where are these drones really coming from? So my thought process was, we've got another virus that China's somehow sending these drones around and sprinkling us with virus dust.
Oh.
Just a thought.
Oh.
Not really a total theory, but just
we went through them all. We went through every theory you could think of here, I would say. Like we kind of like talked about every little thing. That one would have, if I thought that it would have bothered me.
I mean, look at the Chinese weather balloon that flew over this country a couple of years ago. Everybody watched it. Mm-hmm. Our government watched it. No, it's just a Chinese weather balloon. No, it isn't. It's a spy balloon.
Well, I mean, they're saying, and who knows what's true or not, but they're saying it did them more good in the air than it did, just getting shot out of the air. They were gathering, intelligence from the balloon while it was still in the air. So that's why they just kept it in there, so they could get as much as they could out of it before before it left our airspace. Then they shot it down.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it makes sense.
I guess. I mean,
it's also an easy cop out.
But there's so much that goes on out there. Here's what I base my knowledge on: common sense.
Yep. Right on.
I find something that makes no sense. I want to find the common sense factor and build my knowledge around that. It's just, to me, common sense is the most important thing that we have in life. And it's abused or it's ignored, or, in my years that I ran my plant, the laundry up in Connecticut, I taught the managers and supervisors that worked for me, I taught them how to think. Don't think about, you have a problem with this. Don't think about fixing it for today. Think about fixing it so that it never happens again. Don't just put a Band-Aid on it. Find a permanent solution. That's common sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to fix it, but you're going to make it so that it's a permanent fix. And at the end of the day, the people around me were much smarter than when they started. And I'm not saying I'm a wizard. I mean, I could sometimes be the dumbest Italian on the face of the earth. I've made some dumb mistakes, but it's all about common sense. So even with coffee, there has to be a reason that this cup tastes really good and this cup tastes lousy. What's the factor in between that causes that? Well, in the research, I found that it's the elements, it's where the beans are grown, how they're processed, how they're roasted, different temperatures, different, and all these different things. I could have become a roaster and just said, okay, I'm just going to roast coffee and roast them and make them brown and,
Mm-hmm.
the color's right. Yeah, it looks good, but I want them as an end result to taste the best that they can be. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, there's maybe no bigger staple of blue collar life than drinking coffee. The guys, you see them at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock. I mean, like at all hours of day, you got construction workers. They're in and out. They're drinking coffee. We got union coffee breaks. I mean, it's just embedded into our day. It's really nice to get to hear about like all that. I mean, like, who would have ever thought any of the stuff you just said?
Well, that's one of the reasons, Steve, that I actually went on this mission to learn as much.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I left Colombia after that 4-month period and seeing the actual process and all that the coffee beans go through in these countries, I said, there's got to be more to it than just harvesting coffee beans and then taking it and making roasted and brewed coffee, just like anything else.
That's a science. It's like an art. You've turned it into a complete art.
So, that's why when I came home and some people say, well, I heard that this, well, I'd start researching that. And I find that what they heard was not factual. And I'll give you an example, like with caffeine. This is one of the puzzles that goes on for years and years and years, and it'll continue to go on. The myth is that, and at one time I believed it also, that dark roast coffee has more caffeine than lighter roast coffee. Well, that's true and false, all in the same motion, all in the same sentence. And here's the difference. In the research that I went through, I found that every coffee bean, except for your Robusto, all of your Arabica beans have the same amount of caffeine per bean, whatever that may be. Let's say it's, let's call it grams. I know it's micrograms or milligrams or whatever. Let's call it grams. Every bean has 1 gram of caffeine. So in a dark roast, if you're going to roast them at a dark level, it takes more beans to produce, say, 1 ounce of coffee than it does medium. The medium has a moisture factor. So if 1 ounce of dark roasted beans is 100 beans, and 1 ounce of medium roast is 85 or 90 beans, you have more caffeine in the dark roast because you have more beans. But if you're going to go by volume,
Mm-hmm.
it's the opposite, because now your dark roast coffee have expanded larger and fluffier than medium. The medium is still more dense, more moisture, and it packs tighter in volume. So now you have less volume in the medium. You have more volume in the dark, but you have less beans in that volume of the dark, which gives you less caffeine. So it depends on how you measure it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not whether it's dark or medium. It's how you measure it. Then you add it's an algebraic equation, basically.
Well, I ask everyone, I'm going to ask you, what is the dumbest thing you've seen this week?
The dumbest thing I've seen this week.
You could go back a couple weeks if you need to.
I have to say, not just the dumbest single thing that I've seen, but a trend.
Okay.
Our newer generation, right behind you, I don't know how they're going to make it in this world. I really don't. Their thought process just absolutely befuddles me. It amazes me that anybody could think as stupid as they do sometimes. You know, I was not a proponent of the, and I don't want to get political, but I was never a proponent
That's what everyone says before they get political.
I was never a proponent of the student loan forgiveness program.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to an interview, and this interview was done by one of the major broadcast stations, and it was done by one of the journalists that's highly renowned in the industry, although I don't remember who it was. But she interviewed this young woman, about 27, 28 years old. And this woman said that when she got out of college, she found a wonderful corporate job. Working 40 hours a week. She was making good money, good benefits. She had her own apartment. She had a car that she was making her payments. She was able to make her student loan payments. But I can't work 40 hours a week. It's too hard on me. I don't know how I can do this. I have to take care of my apartment. I have a dog that I have to take for walks, and I have this to do and that to do. So I had to find a job where I worked less hours. So I left my excellent corporate job, making excellent money, paying all my bills and being a happy camper, except that I'm working 40 hours. And I went and got a job where I only had to work 32 hours. But I don't make nowhere near as much money. So now I can't afford to make my student loan payment. That's the thought process today. There's no... So this is something that just, it makes me crazy, that people can think that way.
Want to hear the good news?
What's that?
If you're ever looking for a barista, that's the generation you want to go after.
I know.
Good hours. They can walk their dogs as much as they want.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. They can bring them
in. And they love making the fancy drinks.
Yeah, they do.
I mean,
they're very good at it.
At 20 years old, they do make the best baristas.
Fantastic. Corrado, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, again, thanks for having me. I when you contacted me and said you wanted to do this, I just loved the idea.
Cool. Very cool. C&D Coffee Roaster LLC. Check him out. He's in Hamilton. Best cup of coffee you'll have. Best bean, obviously the best bean. I mean, who goes through what you go through? Each bean individually.
Well, it's a little more than that. I know. She takes a handful at a time and lays them out.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I kept my language did a
fantastic
good. I said
job.
hell one time. Apologize.
So for all the ladies out there who are going to see this, when it's shown next
Sunday.
week or Sunday,
It'll be on Sunday. Yep.
We didn't want to offend anybody.
Yep. Usually I offend anyone I want, but it's your show today. Thank you very much, man.
And thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Nicaraguan.
Yeah.
All
Matter of fact, if I don't see you when I do get it ready, I'll give you a call.
Sounds great. Thank you again.
Okay.
All right, man. See you.